Hello, everyone, and a very good evening to all of you. We are really excited to have you here, and we are overwhelmed by the number of participants that have joined us today. And we are consistently receiving more and more requests from the participants all over the country to wait for another 2 to 3 minutes because many participants are yet in the process of joining in. So, in the meantime, more participants join in. Please enjoy this video and stay tuned. We'll be starting in another 3 to 4 minutes. Stay tuned with us today. And we are really excited to see all of you here, those who have joined us in our fifth installment of Entab webinars. Today, we will be exploring something new. And before we get started, I would like to share some useful information with all the participants who have joined us today. This is going to be a 1 hour of live event, and we know that how important your time is, and we are really grateful for you all to setting aside some time out of your busy schedules to join this session. Now, in order to avail the entire benefit of this session, please make sure that you mention your name, your school name, your city and location in the chats, which helps us to award certificates to all the participants for their valuable cooperation to this particular event and their valuable contribution to this particular event. So let's get started and let's take a look at the theme for the webinar today. Today, we will be talking about making learning visible, and under the heading, we'll be exploring competency-based assessment in the classroom. Now, you all must have been very familiar with NEP 2020 and NCF-SE 2023, and there are certain guidelines in both these drafts, right? So we will be talking in detail about competency-based assessments in the classroom today. So here is the agenda on the screen. This is the entire outline for the session. This session is divided into 4 different stages, or you can say the session has 4 different parts. We'll be starting with the introduction or preface of the session. And then after that, we have our very first segment, vision and leadership, where we have invited school leaders to share their valuable experience and information and insights on different aspects of competency-based assessment. And after that, we'll be moving on to our second segment, which is all about capacity building and culture shift, where we have experienced HODs and head of the departments and the coordinator who will be sharing their experience that how competency-based assessment is adding value to the classrooms. And then we have included something very recently. This is the awarding of certificates to the teachers who are investing their time in learning how to use technology in the classroom and how to provide a rich learning experiences to the students using different type of technologies. And we recognize their efforts by awarding them Teacher of the Month certificate. So we have got Teacher of the Month for the month of April and May. So we will be sharing the details of these teachers as well. And finally, we will be having a Q&A session where you can feel free to post your questions in the chat pod, and we will be really happy to answer all these questions that you are posting. So let us make this session more and more engaging, and let's hear it from all the participants. Whatever your questions and queries are about competency-based assessment and how to integrate this into your existing classroom and how does it add value to the ongoing process and methodologies, you can ask anything from our experts. So what is competency-based assessment? So see, I went to school around more than 15 years ago. And during that time, I clearly remember that we used to memorize things. Like, for example, if you want to learn the table of 2, you have to just consistently repeat the same thing again and again. Once you have memorized it, you can just put it there on the answer sheet once again. So it was basically kind of knowledge reproduction that was happening. Now the time is where we have to move from knowledge reproduction to knowledge construction, where we need to shift our focus from recalling of information to demonstration of skills, understanding the concepts and applying the learning into real world context. So for this, we have, like I said, we have invited some experienced keynote speakers today. So moving forward, let us take a look at the very first segment, vision and leadership. And under this very first segment, we have respected Principal Miss Karuna Sejpal from Allen House Public School, Ruma, Kanpur. So first of all, I would like to welcome Karuna ma'am for sharing your time with us and all the participants here today. And we are really excited and we are very eager to learn from you because for my participants, I would like to tell them that Karuna ma'am, she is currently the principal of Allen House Public School, Ruma, and former director of Academics Superhouse Group of Schools. And she is a seasoned educator leader with over 18 years of experience across some of the most prominent school groups in India, including Sunbeam Group, Rayan International Group, and Superhouse Education Foundation. And previously, she held the post of Director of Academics in the Superhouse Group and leading academic strategy and quality oversight across 20 plus CBSE schools, including several Delhi public schools and Allen House Institution. She has been at the forefront of implementing its structural reforms in school systems, from competency-based education to a school quality assessment and assurance framework, compliance to lesson planning framework, teacher training program, and academic audits. And she has conducted and attended multiple national level workshops on competency based education and alignment of NEP in the schools. So, Karuna ma'am, a very warm welcome from the team and all the participants who have joined us today. And Karuna ma'am, we would like to know from your experience and from your expertise that how schools can start transforming or transitioning from a marks based method or a marks based methodology to competency based assessment in a gradual way. So, Karuna ma'am, the stage is all yours, and please share your valuable insights.
Thank you so much, Jatin, and thank you, Entab, for having me here. First itself, the question, when I read through it, it says marks-based assessment, marks-based to competency-based assessments. But even if it is competency-based, the marks go nowhere. So now the idea is to first clear the myth between the traditional teaching and the competency-based teaching doesn't rule out the concept of marks or syllabus, or it is not something that we are not doing or we should stop something. So let's see, what is it? How we can decode CBQs? Is it something out of syllabus? No. Is it something which is harder? No. It is just something which is smarter. So traditional questions say memorize me, whereas CBQ says convince me. So let's see. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Navigating the current assessment landscape. So the idea is we are very much prone to remembering recall type of questions and assessment, which normally judges or assesses the memory of the child. So the challenge is how to convince a parent as well as meet the board expectations, because we belong to a gentry where we have to get into this particular field and we cannot move out from the fact that we need marks. We are catering to some board, whether it is CBSE board or ICSE board or IB board. There are certain parameters of assessments. So gradually a child has to be, trained for that particular thing. So basically the first challenge that we have is balancing our traditional marks with new competency requirements. Now, what is the solution to it? The solution is we stand by with our assessments, but we need to change the questions that we are assessing. For that, we need to actually combine both the approaches of a traditional pattern of questions and the competency-based questions. Next slide, please. So what is basically competency-based questions? We keep talking about real-life application, and I'm sure every teacher who's attending this webinar has been come across this fact that everybody has to have examples, real-life applications. The challenge is, are we actually integrating in our day-to-day teaching? syllabus alignment. Now, the second thing is we have to finish through our syllabus. We have particular timelines. So how do we manage this? What is so big deal about CBQs? Uh, is CBQ also a part of your regular assessment? Then you should be very happy to hear that it is. You can have a CBQ in your 1 marker question, in your 2 marker question, 3 marker question, and 5 marker question, 8 marker question, and so on. So we stand by our traditional marking system. The only change or the shift that we are talking about is how do we create the questions to assess those competencies. Let's see how we can do. I've got some examples. Next slide, please. So small shift, big impact, how to integrate CBQs. It's irrelevant to say now that we don't focus on the why. We do, because nowadays, since NEP has been in focus, we keep talking about learning outcomes. We keep talking about the skills to be assessed. So how and why? We should not be limited only to what. The major shift that we need to do is how and why has to be asked to a child for the assessment. Secondly, when I say CBQs do not check skills. CBQ checks skills, but not just the memory. Also, there should be a scope of diverse answers. Now, if I say diverse answers, how do you give the marking system? Because anything, when I discuss about learning outcomes, every time I keep saying this, that anything which is measurable is something that is actually quantifiable. It means I can assess it, right? Something which I cannot assess measuring it. So we set rubrics for it. So if we include these three factors, we can achieve CBQs. First, we should start creating questions or assessments which ensures that the child is trying to think how and why. The questions are checking the skills and not just the memory. So we should go beyond the recall concept. And then there should be questions which are allowing diverse answers. Let's see the next slide, how we can achieve it. So uh, in past 4 5 years, after the NEP has got in place and CBQ got in place from 20 to 30%, 30 to 50%, it was important that we cannot have a immediate shift. There was a need of a gradual integration of this plan into the systems. So when CBSE introduced about the 50% CBQs, so the challenge was the awareness among the teachers, the awareness amongst we heads as leaders. How do we guide our teachers? It was like a baby step to take forward. Out of 10 chapters, first try to pilot 2 chapters. So how you can shift from marking, the traditional system into the CBQs is pick 2 3 chapters. Initially, try for 2 to 4 CBQs adjustments in the test that you take up. You can have the CBQs included in all your worksheet or assignments that you provide. There's a trend of having, worksheets after every concept. We call it as reflection sheets. So in your reflection sheet, try to have CBQs from the day one. What happens? We assess the students on something which we do not prepare them on. We normally have a very basic direct question worksheets. And when the child is assessed, the assessment contains CBQs. So the idea is from day one, when I'm preparing a chapter, I should have a worksheet which should include CBQ. Like if I'm talking about a question, say assertion reasoning, I cannot have it directly in the question paper. I am supposed to have an assignment or a worksheet for practice where it is included. So the child is having the practice of the same. Third, other than these type of assessments, we also have our internal assessments. For that, it is very important that you design your proper rubric, your projects, your portfolios. These has to be rubric based. It cannot be randomly assessed on the grounds of anything. And also, by the introduction of HPC, this has become ultimately, it is very important and a mandatory thing to have rubrics for your projects and for your portfolios or any activity that is conducted in class. How do you assess a child? You need to set rubrics for it. The very important thing, after I plan to do all these things, how to get this executed. So the teacher training. Now, if I train a teacher today and I expect the teacher to go on with 6 months with the same thing, it's not possible. So basically, trainings are something which has to be like, it is recurring. It has to build confidence and expertise alongside. Also, I am very clear that teacher training should be subject specific. It generally happens what I have gone through when I have been training teachers. I always notice when I'm training a set of teachers belonging to English, social science, or say maths, if I do not pick an example of their particular subject, it tends to become very difficult how to inculcate in our curriculum or our worksheets. So when I talk about teacher training, it needs to be recurring. Second, it should be subject specific, and it should be very clear, tangible, even for the teachers to be assessed. So this is 5-step practical plan for gradual integration of CBQs in a school. Next slide, please. So let's see an example. CBQ in action. How do you get it done? Being a science background person, I have picked a science question. For example, we in general ask, if I say define photosynthesis, we keep on asking from grade 4 to 5, 6, 7, 8, the same question. This is primarily, which is actually testing your recall and definition, focusing on memory. What is CBQ? I'm sure many must have even created it, but they're not aware that this is what CBQ is. Even that is a 2-marker question, but I have just changed the way it is asked. If sunlight is blocked for a week, what changes will happen in a plant? I am going to talk about photosynthesis, but this is testing a competency, which is called as an application skill of a child. So now this question assesses understanding, of course, with application requiring analysis. So now recall, is it so tough to have regular questions with replace it with CBQ? No. We are going against the syllabus? No. Are we not having the same level of marking system? Yes. So what is that is changing? It encourages deeper cognitive engagement. And this is exactly what CBQ talks about. Let's move on to the next slide, please. So now for CBQ understanding, it is important that you are aware of different typologies. So when I talk about MCQs, normally the MCQs that we talk about, it is limited to recall or it is limited to understanding. But believe me, you can have MCQs scenario based. You can have MCQs which is analytical based. You can have MCQs which is also application based. So even for 1-marker question, you can assess CBQs. Just now the example that I gave, if I put it in a form of a MCQ, that same question turns out to be a 1-marker question, and I'm also having a CBQ instead of a traditional question. I am not playing with my syllabus at all. While I'm teaching, I am going to deal with the same question when I do my exit tickets or entry tickets or worksheets. Now, from past few years, assertion reasoning has come under talk. So assertion reasoning was a typology introduced so that people do not have to hunt for typology of questions. Now, assertion reasoning generally has application in real life scenarios. So if there is something which is given and you have to analyze whether the reason is correct or not, the child is thinking deeper, and that is what is competency based. That is what is called as competence. Secondly, numericals. Now, there are general numericals, and normally the numericals are termed as application-based questions. But when I add a text to it, which requires analysis, same application-based question can be converted into an analytical question and evaluation-based question. So I have increased the level of competency, yet I am going ahead with my marking system. Even your short answer questions, long answer questions, or you talk about case study, these are all competency-based questions. Next slide, please. So I have picked a few questions for an example. Like there's a simple question which says convert 37 degree Celsius into Fahrenheit. Now this is a very simple application-based question. But if I'm talking about competencies, now I have to also recall what are the competencies. So the same question can be asked in a different way and assessed a higher level of competency of a child and not just application or remembering. Now the question is, you're visiting the USA and your thermometer shows 37 degrees Celsius. How would you explain your fever to a local doctor in Fahrenheit? Is the child not going to do the same conversion based converting the Celsius into Fahrenheit? Yes, but what question, the way of asking question has been changed. So now I'm not sticking only to a remembering or understanding level. I am going a level higher where the child has to analyze. Okay, why USA needs this? Because the thermometer there reads Fahrenheit. So I have to get this converted also. So that thought process is always there, right? Similarly, there are two other questions like convert boiling water temperature to Kelvin. So unit conversion, simple, straightforward. Why do scientists prefer using Kelvin in research instead of Celsius? So now here the question needs thinking and an answer after analyzing it deeply. So if we think about CBQ as a, it's an overhaul, no, it is not. Also, with the introduction of so many AI tools, which are in the benefit of the teachers, we can always achieve these type of assessments in this tool. Next slide, please. So assessment structure with CBQs, needless to say that everybody by now is aware that 50% is competency-based question in CBSE, right? So we can begin with lower classes itself. You cannot say that competency-based question is not there in kindergarten or in grade 1 and 2. They too have it. We are asking, but we are not aware that it is competency-based, and it is not, only in the senior classes or in the longer answers. Also, there's a myth that competency-based questions are difficult. Well, the level of difficulty, how do we decide the level of difficulty? Again, it's a very big, the more skills you assess, says the level of difficulty. So how can you introduce CBQs in your assessment structure? If a school has to begin with it, initially start in your class test. Try to have 30% of competency-based questions. Include in your MCQ, include in your true and false with reasoning, include in your give reason with justification in detail. So you add an element of competency to it in your class test itself. And gradually, when you move towards your term examination, the students are already prepared. And remember, when a child has already done a CBQ in the class test, for assessments, for main exams, that particular question becomes a remembering question for the child because he has already attempted it. Now, internal assessments, your practicals, your projects, these are all which are practical based and skill based tasks. They also assess the competencies of the students. This has to be introduced in our report cards as well. Your academic report card should have skills. Like in our school, we have introduced skills till grade 3, 4, 5 initially. Now we have reached to 6, 7, 8 as well. That we are going to assess the skill per subject, the internal assessment, because we know in 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th, the children have to go through it. So why not introduce it earlier? So yeah, our report card reflects it. So the parents are also aware that we are assessing what skills per term. So for every school, I would advise that, your report card should have the elements where you're assessing the skills, every subject. Like English has particular skills to be or competencies to be assessed. Similarly, maths has certain competencies. If you refer to the CBSE documents, they have mathematics competency, science competencies also separately. It is very beautiful document created by CBSE in collaboration with EI, which had given a clear picture about all these things. So next one, please. So what are the essential resources? How at a lower level or at a pilot, you can start in your school or at your level as a subject HOD or as a subject coach or teacher. Suppose there are 2, 3 parallel teachers in the school and you need to have you are working for the same topic. Have a shared drive of CBQ, particular chapter you're selecting, and define you prepare your question bank. Like these are all MCQs which are application based or analytical based. Share it with your team so that they can pick their data from there and they can use it. Okay, refer to the CBSE sample references. Again, I told you there's a beautiful document created by, I wish I could have shared the link here, but I'll share it with Jatin. It gives beautiful, reflection of how CBQ has been included in math, science, and English. Then pre-made sample rubrics. Yes, it goes without saying that rubrics are one important part of any assessment. How do I assess qualitative questions and projects? We need to go with rubrics. Again, at the last, when I say about the AI tools, rubrics can be created using your AI tools. Blended worksheets. Blended worksheets very clearly all type of typologies with balanced CBQs. Like you can have different ways of creating your worksheets. Also, I am in favor that worksheet should always be taken as a class test. It is a reflection of what you teach as a concept. Do not take it as a revision sheet discussing it. Discussion should be after you teach, an assessment is taken of what you teach. Then, on the answers, how the students have answered, then there should be a discussion and a remedial of the incorrect ones, or how, why it is incorrect, what more can be done with it. So, that should be a step of doing a worksheet. Teaching, assessing, that is a reflection. Your reflection should be a worksheet. So you should have variety of questions in your worksheets itself. Like whatever school you are in, you must be having a particular pattern of questionnaire and at the end of the session for the summative assessment. Have your worksheet based on those summative assessments questions, which should include 30 to 40% of CBQs in your assessment sheets itself. I mean the formative assessment sheets. Peer support groups. So, well, there are 2, 3 teachers, and now there's a network of teachers. There's a lot of collaboration, best practices, and challenges that you come across. You can always share with each other. With all these things, for any teacher, I would advise to please keep yourself hands-on with your AI tools. The reason behind this is, in future, nobody is going to replace the teacher, obviously, but a good teacher would definitely be replaced by a teacher who is competent enough to use an AI tool. So no robot can replace a teacher, but a teacher will be replaced by a teacher who knows AI very well. How to use all those tools to make your lesson plans better, to make your assessments better. If I asked, ChatGPT is the most, said AI tool. We should be very hands-on with the prompt that we use. Also, you need to humanize it. So these are certain tactics. And I really wish that every teacher should go through one training of these things. So when I put a question, what is photosynthesis in that? And I ask them, please convert the question into an analytical base for a grade 5 level. It will convert the question like that. So these tools are not that they'll make you stop thinking, but you have to, think on your prompts. Also, it makes your work efficient. There's a lot of time invested in the research work. So it helps you to do your work faster. The work which you can do in 10 days, using those tools, you can finish it in 10 minutes. So it's the need of the hour to get into it. Next slide, please. So suppose if you're starting from today, what should be your vision for a year? What should be your key achievements? You should think as a teacher or as a group leader, as a principal, what can I do in CBQ if it is not I'm not complying it completely in my school? You have to make your teachers aware. They should be, very clear that it is not something which is dangerous or which is hard or which is tough. I will not be able to finish my syllabus. How will I answer? We have to come out of this myth because it is part of your teaching. It is not something which is separate. Okay, so that is very much required. The moment you start complying right from your local test, even your exit ticket 2 questions can be of CBQ, you will become, very confident about implementing those questions in your questions paper also, and confident that my students will be able to answer. After 2, 3 class tests, when you get a stable result, now you are aware that my academic result is going to improve on that. It obviously enhances understanding amongst the students for deeper comprehension. Yes, the major important thing that you will see is the cultural shift. The moment you start doing it stepwise, you will notice the cultural shift. You will notice even the students have started asking questions. Our major concern is the students do not understand the questions, what we are trying to ask. So this has to be a repeated cycle, to get this done. If we really want to get into CBQ assessment, and we have to, ultimately, that is what the students will be assessed in the senior classes. So you don't have to undo the old, just embed the new wisely, slowly, and consistently. Let marks and meaning go hand in hand. So that is what CBQ is all about. So lastly, what I would say is, we are not asking for miracles to happen, but it's a moment. As an educator, that's what we do is the best one. Change the question and you will change the learner's outcome. So let's begin with CBQs. We can easily get over it. Thank you so much for hearing me out. For any questions, please put in the chat box. Whatever I will be able to answer, I'll definitely love to answer it.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I would say the examples that you have used during the entire explanation, me myself not being a teacher, I'm already excited enough to implement competency based questions into any training session that I would be going to, because I'm a trainer, not a teacher. So, and I believe that all the teachers who have joined us today would have benefited from the information that you have shared, and they are inspired to use CBQs into their existing classroom, and they can start with the first baby steps and then progressively move on to the full-fledged competency-based assessments in the classroom. So that was very nicely explained, ma'am. Thank you so much. And we are
Thank
just
you, Jatin.
consistently
Thank you.
looking at the chats, and there have been so many likes from all the educators. They are sending heart icons and a lot of things in the chat. So I believe that most of the educators have benefited a lot from the valuable information shared by Karuna ma'am, principal of Allen House Public School, Ruma Kanpur. And with this, we are now moving on to towards the end of our first segment. So our first segment was about vision and leadership, and here we have a question for all the participants who have joined us today. So, dear participants, do you believe competency based assessment is more equitable than traditional grading? If yes, why? And if not, why not? Please feel free to type your responses into the conversation box. And while you are typing your responses, we will be progressing to our next segment where we will be talking about capacity building and cultural shift. And we have invited Miss Indu Gupta. She is the headmistress of Allen House Public School, Ghaziabad. And Indu ma'am has 17 plus years of experience in academic leadership and curriculum implementation. Ms. Indu Gupta is an accomplished educationist with over 17 years of experience spanning teaching, academic coordination, and school leadership. As headmistress of Allen House Public School, Ghaziabad, she leads academic and administrative initiatives from grades pre-primary to 5, ensuring excellence across all levels. Her core strengths include curriculum design, teacher monitoring, and assessment strategy, each grounded in alignment with transformative educational frameworks such as NEP 2020 and NCFSE 2023 and Nipun Bharat. Under her leadership, the school has advanced competency based education, art integrated learning, and interdisciplinary pedagogy across subject areas. Ms. Gupta is also adept at academic resource development, having created structured learning materials and enrichment programs that enhance student engagement. She is known for championing innovation, maintaining academic rigor, and nurturing inclusive, future ready learning spaces anchored in child centric values. So, Indu ma'am, a very warm welcome to our fifth installment of Entab webinar series, where we are talking about competency-based assessments in the classroom today. And Indu ma'am, based on your experience, we would love to know from you that what key competencies should school focus on in developing in students. So, Indu ma'am, stage is all yours. Thank you. Ma'am, you just need to unmute. I think your microphone is on mute. You can just click on the microphone icon.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Jatin. Good evening, everyone, fellow educators, mentors, and lifelong learners. It's truly a pleasure to welcome each one of you to this dialogue, a space where we step beyond the ordinary towards something truly transformative. Today, we are not just discussing educational policy, we are reflecting on our collective responsibility as educators to nurture lives, not just academic records. This session is centered on a vital question: how do we prepare our students not merely to pass examinations, but to live fulfilling, responsible, and empowered lives? We will explore this through the lens of three powerful guiding frameworks: the National Education Policy 2020, the National Curriculum Framework 2023, and the Nippon Bharat Mission. Together, These blueprints reimagine what the learner of tomorrow should be, not just academically equipped, but emotionally grounded, socially aware, and future ready. Next, please. So let's discuss about why competencies matter. We stand at a historic juncture. The paradigm is shifting from content mastery to competency development. The word today doesn't reward what you know, it rewards what you can do with what you know. It values agility, problem solving, empathy, and innovation. Competency based education ensures that learning is deep, meaningful, and durable. It focuses on real world application, not mere recall. We are now talking about developing a holistic learner's profile that combines cognitive growth, emotional intelligence, social skills, ethical grounding. This shift helps us raise not just scholars but human beings equipped for a complex dynamic world. Next please. In this regard, I want to discuss foundational literacy and numeracy. Let us begin with the bedrock. So, as emphasized in Nipun Bharat mission, achieving grade level proficiency is in reading, writing, and numeracy by the end of grade 3 is non-negotiable. It is a gateway to everything that follows. Without it, learning stalls, confidence erodes, and potential is lost. According to the NCF for the foundational stage 2022, learning must be play based, experiential, and activity oriented, rooted in joy, curiosity, and exploration. This means fewer worksheets, more stories, less memorizing, and more doing. A child unable to read or compute meaningfully by grade 3 is at risk of being left behind, not just academically, but for life. Next, please. The NEP and NCF emphasize that education must cultivate thinking, not just answering. Critical thinking and problem solving are not extras, they are core life skills. A student must learn to ask why and how, not just what. Analyze a problem, consider alternatives, take initiatives, make decisions, and learn from feedback. Inquiry based learning, STEM challenges, model building, group debates, these all nurture the mindsets of a problem solver. After all, the goal is not to prepare students for the known, but to empower them to navigate the unknown. Next, please. In a world of hyperconnectivity, how do we express matters just as much as what we express? The NEP's three language policy and emphasizes on the local or mother tongue till at least grade 5, ensures emotional and cognitive ease in early learning. The NCF 2023 takes this further, advocating language across the curriculum, encouraging students to express through reading and writing, listening and speaking, dramatization, visual storytelling, and multilingual expression. And in our digital age, communication is also virtual. Students need to craft respectful emails, give engaging presentations, write persuasive content, know when to pause before posting. Let's nurture expressive, articulate, and thoughtful communicator, not just fluent speakers. Next, please. Learning is no longer a solo journey. It is communal, dynamic, and deeply interpersonal. The NEP and NCF promotes group projects, interdisciplinary learning, and cooperative tasks. Why? Because collaboration teaches active listening, conflict resolution, shared responsibility, empathy. Simple activities like peer feedback, class councils, or group assignments cultivate not just team skills but emotional maturity. Let us move from a culture of comparison to one of co learning and co growing. Next, please. Creativity and innovation. Creativity isn't just for the artists, it's a survival skill. The world is evolving rapidly, and the ability to think differently, to imagine, invent, and innovate is critical. NEP and NCF call for more project based learning, integration of art and crafts, design thinking, and problem framing. Allow students to experiment, fail, try again. Let them build, doodle, perform, remix, and rethink. Creativity isn't a luxury, it is necessity for thriving in the unknown. Next, please. Social and emotional learning. Let us pause and reflect. Can a child who doesn't understand their own feelings ever truly thrive in a community of others? Social and emotional learning, or SEL, isn't an extra, it's foundational. NEP 2020 calls for integrating life skills and well being into all learning. The NCF 2023 introduces the Bharatiya Jeevan Paddhati, an Indian framework that emphasizes values, emotional maturity, and spiritual grounding. In our classrooms, SEL can be nurtured through circle time for open conversations, gratitude journals, and reflective writing, role play situations to build empathy and perspective taking. Emotional intelligence must accompany academic excellence. We are not just building achievers, we are building balanced individuals. Next, please. Our learners are born into a digital world, but familiarity with screen doesn't automatically mean fluency in digital citizenship. NEP 2020 mandates integration of ICT across subjects, and NCF 2023 promotes tools like Diksha, coding simulators, and virtual labs to deepen engagements. We must teach students how to use technology safely and responsibly, navigate social media ethically, verify digital content critically, explore computational thinking and basic coding. We are preparing them not just for smartboards and apps, but for future in AI, data sciences, design and robotics. Let's ensure they become creators, not just consumers of digital tools. Next, please. Education is more than academics. It's a preparation for active ethical citizenship. NEP emphasizes constitutional values like justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity, making them living principles, not mere text. NCF encourages experiential civic learning. That means bringing democracy to life in our classrooms through student led councils, mock parliaments and elections, community outreach and service. Let's raise not job seekers, but nation builders, children who understand their rights and, more importantly, their responsibilities. Next, please. Beyond textbooks, students must be equipped with tools to lead fulfilling personal and professional lives. NEP 2020 introduces vocational exploration as early as grade 6, breaking the myth that life skills come later. NCF embeds career awareness, financial literacy, and adaptability across the curriculum. As educators, we must nurture time and stress management, leadership and collaboration, entrepreneurial thinking, and goal setting, career role plays, field visits, budgeting tasks, even mock interviews can make learning truly future ready. Next, please. Environmental awareness and sustainable living. In this climate sensitive age, students must move from knowledge to stewardship. NEP and NCF both integrate environmental awareness into mainstream subjects, not as one-off lesson, but as a mindset. We can bring sustainability alive through eco clubs that promote recycling and conservation, campus cleanup drives and nature walks, project-based activities rooted in local issues. When children experience nature directly, they grow into adults who protect it passionately. This is how we plant the seeds of a sustainable tomorrow. Next, please. In a land as diverse as India, art and culture aren't nice to have. They are core of identity, empathy, and expression. NEP promotes integration of regional languages, music, dance, folklore into the curriculum. And NCF 2023 operationalize this through art integrated learning. Students blossom when they explore their heritage through festivals and exhibitions. Experiment with theater, painting, dance, or craft. Learn from local artisans and community elders. By engaging with culture, students learn to both celebrate difference and find unity in diversity. Next, please. Let's bring it all together. We are evolving from a system that asks, what do you know? To one that asks, what are you becoming? The UNESCO four pillars of education aligns beautifully here. Learn to know, build academic foundation, learn to do, acquire practical and life skills, learn to be, shape identity, values, and resilience, learn to live together, cultivate empathy and cooperation. Our vision is a learner profile that is competent in knowledge and skill, compassionate in heart, creative in approach, conscious of self and society. What can we do as educators? So, where do we begin? How can we translate this compelling vision into practical steps within our schools and classrooms? Let's consider these guiding actions. Integrate competencies intentionally in lesson plans, not as an add-ons, but as a foundation. Design assessments that evaluate application and skills, not just recall, as just stated by Karuna ma'am. Encourage cross-disciplinary learning where knowledge is not soiled by subject. Use the language of competencies while giving feedback to students. I noticed you collaborated effectively or you showed great persistence in place of just telling them that you have done good. But how they have done good, that should be informed to them so that they can themselves notice their own competencies. Create safe, inclusive learning environments where each child feels seen, heard, and valued. And finally, model the competencies we wish to see. Demonstrate curiosity, kindness, adaptability, and responsibility in your own practice. Change doesn't happen in a day, but it does begin with one determined educator. And that I'm sure you all are. As we have been told that all the educators, parents, we are the role model of our children. So we need to role model that. When we align our classroom practices with NEP 2020, NCF 2023, we aren't just implementing policy. We are ask and I'm able to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for encapsulating all the different competencies that were we had asked to a question that what are all the different competencies a school can focus upon in developing students. Where you have mentioned about SEL, also you have mentioned about creativity and cognitive skills and how technology can be used in an ethical way. And when you mentioned that we should look more forward towards making a student a balanced individual, I think that particular term balanced individual says everything about different competencies that we are talking about today. And according to NEP 2020 and NCFSE 2023, HPC's holistic progress cards, which also includes different domains of development of a student, is nowadays becoming very essential into different schools across the country. So thanks once again for sharing some really useful information for our participants today. And with that, we are now coming towards the end of second segment, which is capacity building and culture shift. And at the end of this segment, I would like to ask a question to all my participants who have joined today. And first of all, I really am, excited by seeing the participation of all the attendees in the conversation pod, and we see a consistent flow of messages, questions coming in. So thank you so much for that kind of interaction with the entire team and the respected speakers. So now the question that comes under the second segment is, what is one competency that the students will need in the future that we are not developing enough today? So as educators, just think about this question. What one competency you think is not being developed in a proportion that it should have been in the school? So you can just quickly type your responses into the conversation box. And while you're typing your responses, we will be moving on to the next part of this webinar, where we will be talking about the teacher of the month 25-26. Now, we are associated with hundreds of schools across India, and different teachers are using different type of technology into their classroom. For example, there are many teachers who are using digital lesson plans. There are many teachers who are using audio visual aids into their classroom, digital assessments, and a lot more things, 3D models to explain things into the classrooms, which really help to get attention of the students and enable better learning for the students. So teachers who are actively using these kind of technologies into the classroom, we consider their efforts as a very valuable step, or a very valuable value that they are adding to the classroom. So here we have the teacher of the month for April 2025, and the name of the teacher is Miss Ruchir Singh from St. Peter's Convent School, Greater Faridabad, Haryana, and she has been awarded Teacher of the Month April 2025. Let's have a round of applause in a virtual mode. Into the chat, you can give your likes and all kind of reactions that you want to. And then the Teacher of the Month for May 2025 goes to Miss Madhushri Saha, Aditya Academy Junior Airport Branch, West Bengal, and she won this award for the month of May 2025. And now today we are here on the very last day of June 2025. So next month again we will be coming up with a new webinar and a new nominee, or I would say a new winner for the Teacher of the Month June 2025. And now it's time for us to move on to the final part of this webinar, where we have shortlisted a few questions that our participants have asked to our keynote speakers, the experts that we have on the panel today. So I'd start the questions that are specifically asked from Karuna ma'am. So first question is, which type of question should be added to competency based assessments or competency based education? I believe Karuna ma'am has already answered this question while she was explaining about CBQs. So we would rather move on to the next question, which is, what support do teachers need the most for CBQ? So this is the question for Karuna ma'am. What support do teachers need the most for CBQ? So Karuna ma'am, I would like you to please spend a couple of minutes and help our participants to understand and get an answer to this question.
Jatin, that question is very relevant, and I think I have been also facing this with my teachers as well. So the idea is what support they need for preparing CBQs or including CBQs is very simple. Two things. One, support which they require from the school part, from wherever they are working or as a teacher, there as a subject. Second, support they can give themselves. That is their self-paced learning. So let's talk about what they can get from the school and what they should expect. First is when I say training. Okay, the training doesn't mean which has to happen in a day. Like today, when even when we talk about students, when the students we give some questions, they need to go home and practice. So when a training happens, after that, a practice for a teacher is also very important. So if there is a Hindi teacher or a maths teacher or a science teacher, be it of any class, any school, that what they can expect as a support is they have to first provide, though it is not now available in the market as well, all the teachers, what you can do is the textbooks that you are referring to have your question bank at the back. So first you can have ask your you can actually, everything is available. So what I can say is you can actually download the verb cycle if you have heard about, which talks about all the competencies, and no school needs to help you on that. You can help yourself. Download the verb cycle, which was designed under the name of Bloom's taxonomy A. You will get an idea of all the competencies. Second, the support that you need is to have some time, maybe on a Saturday or something. Maybe your school can have a 5 working day where one day is given for preparation of these competency questions. That is one thing which is required. The next very important is support yourself. As I said, go for self-paced learning, use AI tools, and you can, the work which you can do in 10 days, you will be able to do it in 10 minutes, which I have been repeating. In fact, when I now work and I have to get this done, I am dependent on it. Because with this fast pace of learning and handling students, research is something which has been sidelined. So all that a teacher right now needs is to explore those self-paced learning domains, decide on your syllabus, take a support of designing your worksheet freedom. Now that is very important. You should have a proper format of designing and assessing those things. So that definitely you can reach out to your HOD, subject experts and principals, give an idea how we can get it done. Have 3-4 short questionnaire, 2-3 questions to begin with, and take permission of only solving those as reflections. I'm sure when you put forward this idea, no school head would even deny. Parallelly, go for self-paced training. So this is, I think I am able to answer that question.
Yes, yes, ma'am, extremely right. And I believe the participants have got a pretty good idea now that what kind of a support a teacher can get. And it's kind of a, there can be a peer teacher who can support an individual teacher. The management is there to support the teacher. And then self-motivation is another driving factor, which helps teacher to adapt to these kind of new methodologies into the classroom. I know, Karuna ma'am, we are already spent like 4 minutes over the time, but there are some really nice questions that participants wanted to ask you. And one last question that I would like to ask you is that how would competency based questions work on the children coming from rural background? I believe this is one of the very important question we have been asked often. So, Karuna ma'am, if you would like to share some of your experience and insights on this.
Even if the children are coming from rural based, the marking system or the grading system that we have is universal, right? So the idea is everybody who can teach a very good child cannot be, I mean, that is not something that everybody does. When you talk about rural, you have to understand bilingualism. There's a lot of, talking about the mother language, but it is with the very diverse background of India that we have. Not every language can be catered in a school. Right. So the idea, if a child is coming from a rural area, again, I am somebody who is in favor of 5 working days of school. So those students who actually belong to these areas would be in the acceleration or the remediation culture. Now there are certain terms of teaching. You have to either accelerate, that is first break the communication barrier. Because the challenge is whether you're teaching in a Hindi medium school or an English medium school. The child has to know the medium of communication. The moment you do that, you can convert that competency, that verb that I'm talking about, in that particular language. Again, a very easy aspect through any of the AI tools. So when a child comes, you have to get it converted into his or her language of understanding. But remember, this is not possible during your regular classes. You have to have timelines of your remediations or accelerations, whatever your school decides to get in.
Yes, ma'am. That is totally. I would say I'm very much inclined to agree to that, and I believe most of the participants would also agree to what you have shared here. And plus, when you say technology, AI, and I was in a school a few days ago, and there was a Hindi teacher. She says that, sir, I wanted to type in Hindi, and I want to create my own question papers. I want to do a lot of research on tools like ChatGPT and other tools, but I'm not able to type in Hindi. So how can I do that? So it's like we told her that she can install a Hindi language in her PC and use the phonetic keyboard where you can just use simple message typing kind of a thing, and the words are automatically converted into Hindi. And when she learned about that particular technology or that particular tool, she was so excited that, yeah, now using technology I can easily type in Hindi and do a lot of things. So that is very true. Technology also plays a very, very important role in bringing the change. And now we have got one last question, and the question has been asked from Indu ma'am. And because Indu ma'am has been talking about social emotional learning as well. So, ma'am, there is a question asked by our participant that how we as educators or we as school leaders or coordinators or HODs can help students to become emotionally mature. I think this is a very good term that has been mentioned and having a very deep meaning. So, Indu ma'am, if you can please share your experience and some really nice examples or ways how we can achieve this thing.
So, as I have told during my presentation as well, that if we really want our children to behave in a particular manner, then teachers, parents, they all need to behave as their role model. If we want our children to be emotionally mature means they need to take up all the success and rejection in on a similar platform, means they should not be carried away by their success, as well as they should not be depressed by any kind of rejection or failure. If they are able to take up both success and failure at the same platter, then they are emotionally mature. So this thing should be presented in front of them by their leaders, by their teachers as well. If we are able to portray the same, because they behave the very same way, the way we are behaving. If teachers and their parents, if they are not projecting the same behavior and we are only giving them that kind of, I would say, the lecture to them, and we are expecting that they will understand and they will be behaving the very same way, it doesn't happen that way. We need to role model the same behavior, and then only we can expect the similar behavior from them.
I agree, ma'am. That's truly said and rightly explained. And in order to make our students emotionally strong or emotionally mature, we need to tell them that, if they are winning at something, they shouldn't be overexcited, and if they are losing at something, they shouldn't be depressed. These are parts of life, and everybody goes through these different stages in life. So rightly explained, and thank you so much for answering this question on behalf of the team. And with this, it brings us to the end of this workshop. And in the end, I would like to share the help desk numbers with all the participants who have joined us today. If you think that you'll need our support more on these kind of things, there are many different guidelines that are mentioned in NCFSE 2023, NEP 2020, one of which was competency-based assessment. There are all many more things. So if any educator or any school leader needs our support in integrating technology into the classroom and understanding that how technology is an enabler and helps to enhance your existing classroom and provide rich learning experiences to the students, you can reach out to us on these numbers and email addresses and website address that is mentioned on the slide. And finally, I would like to express my gratitude to the both the experts for taking some time out of their busy schedules, and being a principal, being a school leader, and being a headmistress of a school is a responsibility that keeps your everyday packed. And in fact, being a teacher also, this is something that keeps you packed even on the weekend. So thank you so much, our experts, our keynote speakers, and thank you so much, all the participants, for spending this good 1 hour and lovely evening with us today. Stay tuned into Intab. Will be coming up again in the next month with something new that can be useful for you all in the classroom as teachers, school leaders, HODs, and coordinators, and with a new teacher of the month. Should you need anything from us, please don't be shy. Feel free to drop a line. Thank you so much. So I'll be signing off for the day. Thank you once again, and have a very good evening to all the participants. Take care. Bye bye.